The head of the Arab Parliament, Adel bin Abdul Rahman Al Assoumi, congratulated the President of the Republic following his re-election, which he stressed reflected the people's confidence and his hope that the President-elect would carry on the edification process he launched during his first term. In a similar move, the President of the Libyan Presidential Council, Yunus al-Menfi, congratulated the President of the Republic, wishing him all the success and hoping prosperity and progress to the Algerian people. The United States, for its part, hailed the result of the presidential elections and reiterated its will to continue to work with the President of the Republic to deepen the relations between the two countries. Let's recall that other messages of congratulations have been sent notably by the head of the People's National Assembly, Brahim Boughali, who highlighted the role played by President Tebboune in the edification process of the new Algeria. Several political parties have congratulated Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune for his re-election as President of the Republic for a second term with 94.65% of the votes. Assia Bekkar has the details in this report.
The National Liberation Front FLN party affirmed that the Algerian people had renewed their trust in the President-elect Abdelmajid Tebboune in order to continue the process of building a strong state with its army, security forces and developed economy. The FLN highlighted the serene conditions, that atmosphere that marked the presidential election, recalling the good image given by Algerians during their participation in such a democratic event. The Algerian people have once again demonstrated a high level of political awareness and responded to those who bet on the failure of the presidential election. For its part, Al Mustaqbal Front praised the success of this election, which constitutes a historic moment and a decisive turning point in the homeland's journey towards prosperity and stability. The party said the precious trust placed once again by the Algerian people in their president affirms the nation's aspirations for clear-sighted governance committed to achieving national ambitions and anchoring the foundations of democracy and progress. The El Bina movement hailed the fact that the presidential election took place within a context marked by serenity and total stability. The movement also highlighted Algeria's success in organizing this pluralistic election, which constitutes an important achievement in terms of democracy.
The campaign managers of the three candidates for the presidential election of September 7, 2024 have made public a joint press release in which they reported vagueness, contradictions, ambiguities and inconsistencies in the figures representing the provisional result announced by the President of the National Independent Election Authority, ANI. Assia Bekkar has the details in this report.
This came in a joint communique signed by the campaign directors of the candidate of the Front of Socialist Forces, FFS, Awshish Youssef, independent candidate Tebboune Abdelmajid, and the candidate of the Movement of Society for Peace, MSP, Hassani Sharif Abdelali. The document cites inaccurate and contradictory figures of the participation rates announced and contradictions between the figures announced by the President of the authority and the minutes of the counting of votes submitted by the municipal and provincial electoral commissions. The campaign management also noted an ambiguity in the press release announcing the provisional results of the presidential election, which did not include most of the essential data in the press releases announcing the results, as it has been the case during the national elections. They also reported an inconsistency in the rates announced for each candidate.
In this slide, the candidate of the Movement of the Society for Peace, MSP, Hassani Sharif Abdelali, said people should have the exact and clear information about the elections figures.
We have made this joint communique because the National Independent Authority for Elections announced yesterday results without the participation rate, nor the number of voters or the people who did not vote or those who voted with a blank sheet. Does this operation abide by the law? We are not asking for something that is not our right. Give us our right. Give the right of the public opinion which took part in the elections. Give them the right to information. That
was the candidate of the Movement of the Society for Peace, MSP. The front pages of the national daily press have been unanimously devoted to the re-election of the President of the Republic, Abdelmadjid Tebboune, for a second term, while highlighting that more than 94% of the voters have cast their ballots in favour of the independent candidate. Majid Mila has the details.
Under the headline, Abdelmadjid Tebboune triumphs, the Daily Al Mujahid noted that the independent candidate secures 94.65% of the votes and quoted a message by the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, underlying that Algeria is entitled to express its joy. Al Mujahid also commented on the overwhelming victory of the independent candidate Abdelmadjid Tebboune, affirming that the Algerian people have voted for a second term of President Tebboune as Supreme Magistrate following the presidential election on September 7th. Under the headline Historic Plebiscite, the daily Le Jeune Indépendant also focused on the landslide re-election of Abdelmadjid Tebboune for a second term with 94.65% of the votes cast. The newspaper wrote that the result would enable the president-elect to begin his term at ease. Under the headline Tebboune re-elected with 94.65% of the vote, the Daily Horizon commented on the victory of the independent candidate Abdelmadjid Tebboune, saying it is the sole merit of a man who has been consistent in his approach since he was elected in 2019. The front page of the Daily Al-Shab ran the headline Absolute Confidence in the President, carrying at the same time the congratulations from the heads of state of brotherly and friendly countries for the re-elected president's second term in office. The Daily Al-Khabar headlines that Algeria has chosen stability with this election and writes that Tebboune wins a second term full of challenges. In the meantime, the re-election of Abdelmadjid Tebboune to a second term hit the headlines of the newspapers published in the southeast of the country, with a large portrait of the president-elect on the front page. Qaid News, issued in Al-Wad, carried the headline Abdelmadjid Tebboune, President of the Republic, with 94.65% of the votes. It published the results of the presidential election announced by the President of the Independent National Elections Authority, ANI.
You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. Recently, it has been noticed that the French press, when it comes to Algeria, turns into an anti-Algerian media, especially the channel France 24, which spreads fake news about Algeria. These media have been cursing the remarkable transformations that Algeria has undergone since the election of President Tebboune, at a time when France is experiencing one of the most serious phases in its history. Algeria is a great country of freedom, stable and prosperous. The country is on the path of development, far from what it used to be during the French colonization. This fact is reflected by the reports of international bodies, notably the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Algeria in the 2020s is a country with legitimate and stable institutions. It does not have a cent of debt, which is not the case for France, which has a debt of 3,000 billions and is included in the list of the 5 most in-debt European countries. The whole world is talking about Algeria and its great progress in all areas, but the French media has turned a blind eye to this progress. And now, Interior Minister Brahim Merad has paid a visit to the province of Béchar to assess the damage caused by the rains and inquire about the measures taken to preserve the safety of the citizens and their property. Mr. Merad was accompanied by other government members. His visit is aimed at speeding up the rehabilitation of those roads and infrastructure damaged by the violent rains that hit the region recently. And now 16 people were killed and 36 others wounded in a series of strikes carried by the Israeli occupation in the province of Hama in the central Syria, according to a new report published by the Syrian news agency SENA. The Zionist army's attacks against Syria have been recurrent, particularly since the start of the Zionist aggression against Gaza and occupied Palestine on October 7, 2023. In reaction to this aggression, the Iranian Foreign Ministry strongly condemned these criminal Zionist attacks on Syrian soil. The ministry spokesman Nasser Kanani said it was high time that the Zionist entity supporters stopped arming it. And Syria has strongly condemned the airstrikes carried out by the Israeli occupation army against several of the areas in the center of the country. In a statement, the Syrian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates said that Syria condemns it in its strongest terms this criminal attack on Syrian territory, warns of international silence in the face of the Zionist entity's disregard for all international laws and conventions and its violations of international law and calls on all countries of the world to condemn this aggression and support Syria in seeking to put an end to systematic Zionist attacks and crimes and to hold the perpetrators of these acts to account. He affirmed that the persistence of the aggression of the occupying entity against the Syrian territories and other countries in the region, the continuation of its brutal war against the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, and the perpetration of the most horrific massacres and crimes of genocide against the Palestinians demonstrate the attempt of the entity to further aggravate the situation in the region and push it towards dangerous developments that will have disastrous repercussions. The Sudanese Ministry of Health announced that the number of deaths due to torrents and rains in the country has risen from 173 to 205, while deaths due to cholera had risen from 156 to 185. In a statement, the ministry said that 268 new cases of cholera were recorded, including 6 deaths in the eastern states of Kassala, Gedaref, and the northern state of Nile. The ministry added that this brought the numbers of infection in the 7 states affected by the disease to 5,692, including 185 deaths. Let's recall that last Thursday, the Ministry of Health announced that 156 people had died as a result of the cholera epidemic on August 12. The authorities declared that the cholera an epidemic in the country. The same source explained that more than 26,000 houses have been completely damaged, while 33,000 houses have been partially damaged due to torrents and rains since last June. And more than 20 civilians were killed and 100 others wounded in an attack carried by the Rapid Support paramilitary forces in the town of Sennar in central Sudan. The Sennar Youth Gathering, a local voluntary group, reported that the Rapid Support paramilitary forces had bombed the Sennar market and the El Muwazzafin neighborhood. Meanwhile, the non-governmental Sudanese Doctors Network said that 21 people have been killed and more than 70 others wounded by the RSF artillery fire on the Sennar market, describing the attack as a massacre against unarmed civilians. Back to national news, the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank, will be organising the 4th edition of the Intra-African Trade Fair, IATF, scheduled to take place from the 4th to the 10th of September 2025 here in Algiers, where more than 2,000 exhibitors, including companies from the African continent and around the world, will be showcasing their products and services. Under the theme Gateway to New Opportunities, the IATF 2025 will welcome more than 35,000 visitors from over 140 countries around the world, which forecast more than $44 billion worth of trade and investment deals during the week of the fair. The IATF 2025 will be attended by heads of states, ministers of trade, finance, culture and other ministries, as well as industry leaders. This biannual event, organised in collaboration with the African Union Commission and the General Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, aims to support the development of intra-African trade and investment, notably in the context of the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. And now back to national news. Algeria ended its participation in the 70th Paris 2024 Paralympic Games with 11 medals, 6 of gold and 5 of bronze, putting Algeria in the lead at the Arab and African levels in an honourable 25th place worldwide out of 186 countries. Asia Bekar has the details in this report.
The Paris Paralympics were dominated by China with a total of 220 medals, including 94 gold, followed by England with 124 medals, including 49 gold. The head of the mission and president of the Algerian Disabled Sports Federation, Sid Ahmed Lasri, said that he was delighted with the performance and the number of medals won, stressing that it has not been easy to win so many titles, adding that it shows the hard work carried out by the various coaches as well as the sacrifices they and their athletes made to reach such a level. Algeria's performance at the Olympic Games in 2024 equals that of Athens' 2024 Games in terms of gold medals. For the head of mission, out of all the gold medals won, those of Abdelkader Bouammar and Ibrahim Ganduz were a surprise for the whole delegation. The positive point, according to Al-Asri, is that the athletes have benefited from the best resources made available by the Algerian state, as well as the work carried out by all the coaches and members of the delegation, who have done their best to put the athletes at ease before and during these Olympic Games. For his part, the National Technical Director, Selim Boutabsha, praised the performances of the Algerian Paralympic athletes who had enabled Algeria to regain its place in Paralympic top 30. Algerian handisport confirmed its position as African and Arab leader at the 17th edition of the Paralympic Games, which have now come to an end. At the African level, Algeria, with its 11 medals, has strengthened its position as a standard bearer for disabled sport on the continent, thanks to its athletes who distinguished themselves at the Games.
That's it for today's news bulletin. I invite you now to listen to a special program by my colleague Majid Mila. Stay tuned on Radio Algeria International.
Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. In today's program, we evoke the ongoing General Census of Agriculture. The government has allotted 900 million Algerian dinars for this long-awaited event. Let's see what are the government's expectations and how it works. The President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, grants great importance to the agricultural sector for its major role in the revival of the national economy and its contribution to the country's food security. The agricultural sector has undergone major changes and transformations in recent years, whether in terms of expansion of agricultural areas, the introduction of new products, or the use of water and irrigation. However, in order to develop this sector, we need to identify its real capacity so that we can determine the policies we need to follow to achieve this objective. To this end, under President Tebboune's instructions, the government has allocated 900 million Algerian dinars to the General Census of Agriculture, which will provide credible and reliable indicators to help decision-making and guide government policy with a view to accelerating the pace of development and modernization in the sector, as well as improving production. According to experts, the General Census of Agriculture is an essential component of agricultural planning and policies. It provides vital information on agricultural production, land use and livestock, and it's essential of ensuring food security and promoting rural development. The General Census of Agriculture reveals real data and the true reality of the sector thanks to accurate figures obtained through digitization. It has captured the attention of the authorities, who grant great importance to it, given the imbalances in statistics to which the President of the Republic has referred to on several occasions. Mr. Tebboune had assured that a general and precise census would give a clear and faithful picture of the current situation, its economic indicators and its production capacities. It will enable investment opportunities to be accurately identified and future production targets to be set, in addition to providing a good framework of import and export operations. In particular, the rationalization of input support operations and the correct estimation of financial credit requirements. Its resultant data will also make it possible to plan food security priorities. It should be noted that the increase of prices observed for certain products in the past are due to the absence of real figures on production capacity and resources. This lack of data has led to an imbalance between supply and demand, which has led to higher prices, as experts explain, citing as an example the red meat crisis, which its prices have risen unusually in recent months due to the previously erroneous figures on livestock numbers.
statistics and digitization are the only way to determine reality and plan for the future. And the imbalance that occurs in the production of certain agricultural products, whether shortage or surplus, can be controlled through the census operation and digitization. It would therefore be possible to avoid market disturbances, ensure a well-balanced supply, which in return ensures stability and stable prices, and direct the surplus towards export instead of damaging these products and causing huge losses to the farmer. The agricultural sector has already undergone several general agricultural censuses, notably in 1973 and 2001. However, it's better to update the data, especially as technological development and modern tools are helping to improve the efficiency of this census. General agricultural census campaigns have always preceded transformations in Algeria's agricultural economy, particularly as a proactive step towards building a national strategy along the lines of the agrarian revolution of the 1970s, the Agricultural Renewal Program, and agricultural and rural development. The general census of agriculture must be followed by the development of a national strategy that defines medium and long-term objectives for the 2030-2035 horizons. The modern vision of agriculture must be built on the basis of food security, economic growth, export diversification, and sustainability in line with environmental standards.
Program Destination Algeria. I'm Jamal Slimani. There are a number of great destinations in Algeria just waiting to be discovered. A curious mixture of cultures and influences, Algeria has something interesting to see in just about every city. The country is also the first largest on the African continent, so you can be sure that there are plenty of towns and cities to visit. Let's visit Algeria's fascinating destinations, you and I, together. The northeast region of Algeria is diverse and fascinating to say the least. With its majestic rugged coastline, high plains, breathtaking mountain ranges, picturesque farmlands and sunny beaches, tourists flock to the various cities and towns located here. Algeria has many noteworthy sites and historical attractions scattered across its wonderful landscapes, and in the northeast region, visitors will find a new discovery in